Welcome to the Jaybe Show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys here on this beautiful Sunday. It is Sunday, August 10th, 2025. We are live. Good to see all of you here. Welcome back. Nice to have you. If you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps us out to be able to reach more people. So thank you so very much there. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe as well. This also helps us out even further, so we may be able to bring the news to you, as well as encourage and inspire, so that people will act more in the interest of the community. So thank you very much there. Also, if you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever clips are uploaded or live streams like this pop up. So you guys have that there. And also, if you guys would like to get in touch with us or submit any stories that you find interesting, you can get to us by going to email at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. All right. So thank you so very much to everybody. Good to see all of you here watching me live on YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. All right. Let's go ahead and say hello to all the people that's inside the chat, and then we'll get to our stories for today. We have first coming up, we have Lady Alex coming in saying, I'm an RN working at the VA. My union, NNU, National Nurses United, is now not recognized by the VA, and our master agreement is now null and void. I'm going to star this to keep this because as we go through the story, I want you to tell us like what you're experiencing right now at present, Lady Alex, because I'm also comrades with a doctor that works for the VA as well. And she's also, her union basically contract was also taken away too. So we'll be discussing that as well. So I'm not going to read all of your responses, but I will read them towards the end of the segment so that we can get more on the ground thoughts from you as well. So thank you very much for adding that too. We're saying hello to Jacqueline coming in saying, hey, Jaybe. Hey, everyone. All right. Good to see you. All right. We got the people coming in. We have Terry Connolly coming in saying, greetings, Jaybe and comrades. Greeting to you, Terry. Nice to have you. All right. And yes, of course, Terry says, Lady Alex, sorry to hear of your struggles. Yeah, definitely. Workers should not be subject to this. And we'll be getting into that, because I got a few things to say in regards to that story. That is actually a story that's not getting a lot of attention, and it needs to. So we'll be getting into that very shortly. But while we're at it, anybody who's on the Rockfin side, good to see you. Let me check. Do we have anybody watching on Rockfin? We got a couple people watching on Rockfin, and they will respond in a little bit. And to anybody that's watching also on the Rumble side as well, we'll get to you in a little bit too. We also have Savitha coming in saying, hey, everyone, time today. Good to see you, Savitha. All right. So what are we talking about today? Let's get into this. This is going to be a couple of stories. We're going to have one that is not so good, especially in regards to workers, but we're also going to have a positive story. I'm going to end with the positive story today. But we're going to get into this deep story that should be talked about by everybody, especially on independent media. So let's get to that thumbnail. We have here, later in the show, we're going to be going to positive news. Orlando Public Library. Yeah, we're going to be talking about it because I think this is good stuff. And we need some positivity, right, to talk about. But first, what we're going to be talking about is how VA workers are screwed. This has been something big, and if anybody that cares about veterans, anybody that cares about workers should be paying keen attention to this. So we're going to get into this right now. Veterans Affairs workers are screwed in these United States. And one of the main people who has done so to screw them was President Donald Trump. Him and his regime, of course, have actually just axed a few unions as far as late as last week and the later parts of last week. And so a lot of workers who work for the Department of Veteran Affairs, they are now waking up to having less protection as workers within their workplace while taking care of the service members that have sacrificed for this nation. We're going to be getting into this, and then we're going to be getting into more of the nuts and bolts. But first, we're going to go into a video that I would like to get into as far as this subject goes. This is not good at all. I am looking at what's going on here. Let me see. What happened to my video? I had it up and now it's gone. That's my bad. All right, let me see. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. That's not where I should go. I know what happened. We're live, folks, by the way. That is for certain. I found it. Just wanted to make sure I got it. Okay, so let's get into this right now. My apologies for that hiccup, but we shall proceed. And so let's get into this, and then we'll get into more of the deeper details, the meat of the sandwich, so to speak, just in a second. All right, let's take a look.
Collective bargaining agreements with unions representing government employees now terminated. The Department of Veterans Affairs made the move after a court order blocking such actions was lifted last week.
Covering Allegheny County tonight, Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Kaylee Gunderson live in Oakland to bring us up to speed. And Kaylee, workers within the VA Pittsburgh health system now raising concerns for their collective bargaining agreements.
Right, Andrew, questions about what this could mean for their employment. The Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins making that move to terminate contracts between 5 different federal employees unions. Tonight, we're hearing from one, the American Federation of Government Employees. They represent employees here at the Pittsburgh VA Medical Center, and they're sharing with me what employees should keep in mind.
What they need to know is their local union 2028 is the local there is there. They're not gone. They haven't been disbanded.
But Philip Glover, National Vice President of AFGE's District 3, warning Pittsburgh workers they could see a shift in how management operates.
Well, certainly management will take advantage of this decision and probably attempt to make changes to the working environment, maybe the schedules. There might be a whole lot of things that they do.
This change.
So let's stop there for a second. So when it comes to unions, right? I always say that unions are a step in the right direction. I think that workers should actually own, but this is more of a governmental. This is government. This is public sector, and so therefore, when it comes to unions, I am heavily in favor of unions. They should be required really in the public sector because honestly, you do not want any of these workers to be exploited. The problem is that now that protection is gone, where the unions can collectively bargain, the unions could have power. The unions are the collection of workers that have power and say over how they're treated in the workplace. That protection is now gone. And so now this gives management the ability to be able to exploit the workers even more. And we're not just talking about the people who are doctors and nurses at the VA. We're talking about people who work in the administrative offices. We're talking about the people who may be transporters. We're talking about people who may be working in nutrition. We're talking about people who may be in housekeeping. We're talking about all the people that literally make the VA run. And so because they are being cut out from having this negotiating power as workers, now it gives the management and upper management carte blanche to exploit them and to overwork them and to give less pay because they're trying to be fiscally responsible or give more work and say, oh, well, we need to make the Veterans Affairs work more efficiently. And the problem is that as far as I know, from what I know of people who work at the VA on the inside, and of course, Lady Alex, you can also respond to this as well. But the VA has actually been on a hiring freeze for quite some time now. And so as the amount of veterans that use the VA grows, there's not many people to pick up that slack. So now they're kind of running with a skeleton crew. And a lot of times people look at doctors as seeing them as privileged and going, well, you're a doctor, you make good money, blah, blah, blah. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize, number one, doctors are still workers, right? Nurses are still workers. And so even though they may be higher up on, as far as the economic ladder, much is given, much is required, right? And with that said, a lot of the physicians, the doctors, the clinicians, they are also overworked, meaning that their caseload is heavier than what it should be. Meaning that, I'm gonna give you an example. And as somebody that's been disabled and somebody that's been within the healthcare industry, not within the healthcare industry, but dealing with healthcare professionals for almost 20 years, I can attest to this. The doctor comes in. The doctor asks you a couple questions. The doctor will tell you a couple things. They may take their stethoscope and they may listen to your breathing, touch you in the spots that they need to touch you, say a couple things, and in 5 minutes, they're out. They're out. Is that on purpose? Is that always because the doctor just doesn't care? Well, no. The doctor would like to spend more time with you, but the problem is that the doctors have so much more caseload that they only are allowed a few minutes at a time for each patient, which means they have to get through that. On top of that, they're not done with you just because they walked out of the room. They are also not only doing rounds, but they also have to put in their notes. They have to make sure the prescriptions are done correctly. They have to check in with the nurses, all about you. So they're spending extra time on you. It's just they're not in front of you. And so on top of that, a lot of doctors are overworked. So they're working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week for that salary that they have. And so, of course, doctors also want to be unionized because if they're overworked, if your physician is overworked, if your physician is tired, if your nurse is tired and overworked, if your nursing assistant or the tech is overworked and tired, a lot of bad things can happen. And then on top of that, people may look at somebody who does housekeeping, that does like cleaning of the hospital rooms and facilities. And what if they're tired and overworked? Well, would the rooms be clean as efficiently to make sure that infection rates are as low as possible? Right? What about the people who are overworked and underpaid, who may be working in nutrition, making your meals while you're in the hospital at the VA? What about the transporters? If the transporters are tired and worn out and they have to take you from one end of the hospital to the other end of the hospital, then it's kind of bad because now they're slowing down, which backs up everything else. And so this is why you need workers to have power within, especially in the public sector, because somebody who does not have respect for workers, and I argue that both Democrats and Republicans are virtually the same in this regard. One may cry about it more, but they're virtually the same. The problem is that the workers need to be able to say, well, you can't run this government without personnel. Right? And so that's the point I think that needs to be said, is that what this gentleman was saying earlier is that it now gives the management the ability to be able to say, well, if you're not going to do this job, and I'm just going to have to find somebody else to do it for less and do more work. But the problem is that people aren't necessarily lazy. Those are far few and in between. The people that they're referring to are the ones who don't want to be overworked, the ones that want to work with dignity and meaning having a proper work-life balance. And so that's what this is about. This is not about workers taking advantage. No, this is about bosses taking advantage. And so we're going to continue in that too, because I wanted to just go through that. Because a lot of times people will go, well, these unions, they're making it so that the workers can just do whatever they want. No, that's not actually the case. And that's really the boss, the parasite class speaking through that person. Let's continue.
Came last night.
Doug Collins, who is the secretary of the VA in one of our largest units, put out a memorandum to no longer follow AFGE's contracts with the national VA.
Collins making this move in response to an executive order by President Trump back in March that attempted to cut collective bargaining rights for many federal workers, claiming national security concerns. This is the latest action after months of litigation, and Glover expects legal challenges to continue.
So AFG may be able to go straight into court on these employees' behalf without ever going through the administrative processes, now that they have done this exclusive recognition issue. So we're looking at every avenue to still represent employees to the fullest.
Congressman Chris Deluzio responding today in a statement saying in part, quote, union busting the hardworking men and women at the VA, many of whom are veterans themselves, is all part of their plan to make it easier to fire VA workers so that they can keep privatizing and outsourcing care. We have reached out to the offices of Congressman Guy Rushenthaler and Congressman Mike Kelly for comment. We'll let you know when we hear back. Covering Allegheny County.
So basically, that is what's going on with the VA. That's more of an overview. But I want to go into the other side of the argument, because the other side of the argument is really the Trump regime administration, if you will. And they actually put out a statement in regards to the the ending of the contracts with the unions that are no longer going to be negotiating on behalf of the workers. So let's go here. This is from news.va.gov. It says VA terminates union contracts for most bargaining unit employees. It says the move will ensure that the VA stays focused on veterans instead of spending millions of taxpayer dollars and approximately 750,000 hours per year on union activities. So let's get into this, because this is also important to get into. It says the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs today announced the termination of collective bargaining agreements for most VA bargaining unit employees, a move that will make it easier for VA leaders to promote high-performing employees, hold poor performers accountable, and improve benefits and services to American veterans. So I'm going to highlight this. So they say a move that will make it easier for VA leaders to promote high-performing employees. So this is government speak for they want workers to do more with less. Work more hours. Work with less pay, and maybe less benefits. See what I mean? So under the Biden administration, they were already under a hiring freeze, and they needed more workers. They needed more doctors, more clinicians. They needed more techs. They needed more nurses. They needed a whole lot of different more positions, because the VA is actually growing. And it grew actually in popularity. The problem is that even the Biden administration was like, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna hire. And now, who's carrying the baton even further? Now, Trump regime, after the Biden regime, is carrying that baton even further and saying, you know what? Not only we're going to be on a hiring freeze, but we're also going to cut out the unions so that the workers have less power. So let's continue on, and it says hold poor performers accountable. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is bullshit. Because holding poor performers accountable, are there poor performers? Yeah, in pretty much almost every job, there's somebody who does a poor performance, right? But that doesn't mean you take away the union. That means that you deal with the poor performers. And they're thinking, well, the unions are going to protect the poor performers. My question is who do you consider to be poor in performance? Are you talking about the workers that don't want to be overworked? The workers that don't want to be underpaid? Because here's the thing. These workers, a lot of times, some of these workers are barely able to make it, or they're just making it. And yet they're taking care of a population of people that have served their government. Now, whether they did it, for the right reasons or not, I'm not going to get into that. And a lot of these veterans were actually lied to by our government. So therefore, if these veterans were lied to by our government to fight in these imperialist regime change wars, and then they got their, themselves harmed, maimed, mangled, and broken because of it, well, the very least that the government can do is make sure that they're taken care of for the rest of their lives as far as healthcare. But even then, they don't want to do that. And so here's the problem. If you don't take care of the people taking care of our veterans, then are you taking care of our veterans? There's levels to this shit. And the thing is that you got to realize that just like the Biden administration, the Trump administration doesn't give a damn about veterans. They don't. They never have. If Trump could replace if he could just allow all the veterans to die without ever having to lift a finger to help them, he would. Pretty much 99% of everybody that is in Washington, that is in the upper echelons of power in Washington, D.C., they really don't care about veterans. They say they do, right? And they'll grandstand, and even Democrats will grandstand about the veterans. But the problem is they're still willing to work with somebody like Donald Trump. If they say he's such a fascist that he is, well, then why aren't you guys putting up a bigger fight? My question is, if Donald Trump is actually a fascist like y'all said he was during the 2024 elections, then why didn't y'all do your own January 6th? If you're trying to stop fascism. Because you all know where that leads. Oh, okay. So you guys were just saying that even though you don't really think Trump is that bad. And that's the crazy part. It's like, that means either one, Trump is not a fascist, and you guys are just grandstanding in order to be hyperbolic, or y'all both are fascists and you don't want to call his fascist ass out, because then that means you have to call out your other side for being fascist too. I'm leaning towards the latter. And now you're going into the realm of getting close to privatization. This is what we call death by 1,000 cuts. It's not going to be one clean swipe of the sword, right? This is little nicks here and there to cause the institution to bleed out. So then people point to it and go, see, it's less efficient now. We need to privatize. They're saying they're not going to privatize it. Well, they're trying to make it so that privatization becomes the better argument. Because if you weaken it enough, then it goes, well, we're going to have to privatize it. So let's continue on. It says improve benefits and services to American veterans. So they're saying that basically exploitation of workers will actually improve benefits. My question is, if you guys wanted to improve benefits for veterans, then why do we have a lot of them that are homeless right now? Y'all come back to me when you actually start to house the homeless veterans. Then maybe just then, some people will believe you. I won't believe you, but maybe they will. Continuing on, it says the announcement comes in response to President Trump's executive order that excludes certain federal agencies from labor management relations programs. In accordance with the same executive order, the Veterans Administration on April 25th stopped withholding union dues from most employees' paychecks. Let's continue on. It says the VA today notified the following unions that effective immediately pursuant to the executive order, their contracts with the VA have been terminated for most bargaining unit employees. So the American Federation of Government Employees, the AFL-CIO, AFGE, National Association of Government Employees, the National Federation of Federal Employees, National Nurses Organizing Committee, and the National Nurses Union, and the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU. Contracts covering the roughly 4,000 VA police officers, firefighters, or security guards represented by these unions will remain in place as those occupations are exempt for the executive order. Oh, here you go. Here you go. So the cops, firefighters, and security guards, oh, they get to keep your union. They can keep their unions. They can keep the negotiations. But when it comes to the people that are actually doing the diagnosing, the surgeries, the treatments, the nursing, the taking care of the patients, oh, well, we don't want protections for them. We just want protections for the pigs and for paramedics and the rent-a-cops. That's who they want protection for. They don't actually want protection for the people who actually make the VA run. They don't want protections for that. Why? Because they're trying to privatize it. You know what that's going to mean, right? That means more veterans are going to die. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm allergic to bullshit. Look, I said what I said. Go cry to your big bone mama about it. But this is the problem. Because the thing is, like capitalists, they see the VA and they're licking their chops because they want that money so bad. They want to operate those hospitals because they want to do those elective surgeries because that elective surgeries make money. All they got to do is spend, a couple mil on that MRI and they rake in millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars for that MRI. Right? This is why the privatization of healthcare is such a demonic thing. It's monstrous. And now they're trying to do it to veterans. And now, so once you get out of the military, once you're discharged, where are you now? What type of healthcare are you going to have? You're going to have nothing better than what we have. Honestly, this begs the question. What are the benefits of joining the military again? Because back then they said, oh, you got free healthcare. But that now, at this rate, is only going to last until you are discharged. Then once you're discharged, well, they basically want to have that privatized eventually. Then after that, guess what they're going to do? They're going to see all those veterans and they're going to see, well, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't give them zero interest home loans. Maybe we shouldn't give them free college. Maybe we should have them pay because that will be more money in our pockets. Because we can put them more in deeper debt. So all the benefits that got people in the military, y'all ruining it. Because the greed of the capitalist class, they're taking away every incentive to join the military because of their greed. Their greed will be their undoing. Let's hear what the Trump regime has to say even further. It says the decision is good news for veterans, families, caregivers, and survivors for several reasons. It says the VA staff will spend more time with the veterans. In 2024 alone, over 1,900 VA bargaining unit employees spent more than 750,000 hours of work on taxpayer-funded union time, including some who are paid more than $200,000 a year. With no collective bargaining obligations, those hours can now be used to serve veterans instead of those union bosses. Honestly, no, it's not, because they're going to try to increase the caseload for all these different people. So you may only see your doctor for 5 minutes, but also they're going to be working less time on your case too, which means that your care is going to go down because they're going to try to load more onto the hospital staff. And now they're going to be making more demands for them to move faster with more caseloads, and that's not going to be fair to them. Wouldn't the answer be more to fund the VA more? But that's not their answer. They're trying to make the VA like a private hospital. And if anybody's ever been into a private hospital, things don't move that fast. They don't. Go to a country where they have free universal healthcare, especially a nationalized healthcare system. Things move like lightning. I've heard of people going to places like China where they had to go see a doctor about maybe a sprained ankle or something like that. They go, they see the doctor's available immediately, right? You go see the doctor checks you out, and the doctor goes, okay, go down the hall, go to imaging down the hall. And then they're already ready for you down the hall for imaging. You don't have to make an appointment for a separate imaging center, and you have to wait a few days to go to the imaging center. Then you have to submit your information for some type of insurance in order to be able to get imaging done, and then had to make sure it's within network. No, you go to the doctor sees you. Okay, go down the hall, go get imaging. Then in a few minutes, the imaging's done. The doctor has the imaging, and then next thing you know, he's like, "Oh, okay, it looks like you have a small hairline fracture here," or "Oh, it's just a sprain. You're fine. I'm going to prescribe you this." And then it's like, "Okay, we'll go to the pharmacy." But where's the pharmacy? The pharmacy's down the other way down the hall. And so then by the time you walk out the hospital, you may have a cast or a brace on, right? And instead of walking out with a prescription, you're actually walking out with the medication. And even if you have to go to a separate pharmacy for the medication, then you go there and it's pennies on the dollar in comparison to here. And yet they don't want to do that for veterans. Does that make sense to you? They don't even want to do that for veterans. This government does not care about its military. It only cares what it can get out of it. And if you served and you're done, well, you're done. They're done with you. When you screw the workers, you in turn screw the people they serve. That's in life. That's in business. How many times have you went to a business place and the workers were just horrible? And it wasn't always because, well, the workers just don't know what they're doing. They're just not that good. No. How are the workers being treated? If the workers aren't being treated well there, then guess what? That it's a domino effect. And that domino effect eventually hits the people they're supposed to serve. And it's not fair. Let's continue on. It says VA facilities can focus on treating veterans instead of hosting unions. More than 187,000 square feet of VA office and clinical space is currently being used by union representatives free of charge. This has cost VA millions of dollars in lost rent, and expenses for union bosses, government phones, and computer equipment. Today's decision will ensure VA facilities are fully focused on helping veterans get the care and benefits they earned instead of serving as free regional offices for unions that oppose our efforts to improve the VA. So really, it's that they're mad that the VA rank and file within these unions have their offices there, because they need to be close to the workers so that the workers can report to them, if anything that the bosses try to do is wrong. It says VA can manage its staff according to veterans' needs, not union demands. They're not doing it to veterans' needs. If they did it to veterans' needs, then the VA wouldn't be under a hiring freeze. Donald Trump and his regime wouldn't have kept that same hiring freeze that Joe Biden had if they actually cared about veterans' needs. If they cared about veterans' needs, then veterans wouldn't be sleeping out on the streets. If they cared about their needs, if they cared about veterans' needs, they wouldn't be doing regime change wars. If they cared about veterans' needs. Do you know what I mean? It says labor contracts have restricted managers' ability to hire. Labor contracts have restricted managers' ability to hire. The problem is that the ability to hire basically means, like, do you have it in the budget in order to be able to hire more people? But the problem is, if you don't increase the budget, then they can't hire more people. But what they're basically saying is they want to cut people's pay so that they can hire more people without actually increasing the budget. Thus, meaning that they want to exploit more people so then they have more people on staff, but they don't want to increase the budget to fully fund the VA like it should be. So now you're going to have overworked VA staff and underpaid VA staff doing the work. And if they're being exploited and not treated well, what in the hell you think is going to happen to our veterans? It says promote and reward high-performing employees. That means the employees that are willing to be exploited in order to get ahead. But the problem is that they're willing to forego their work-life balance. They're willing to not assert themselves as workers in order to let the institution know that, hey, without us, there is no VA. They want drones. They want people who are just going to be compliant and not assert themselves as workers and say, hey, we have power too. That's basically what it's about. It says, and hold poor performers accountable, those people who are asserting their power as workers. And they said, and implement reforms to better serve veterans. The problem is that if you're going to be firing the ones who actually are asserting themselves so that they do have a good work-life balance, that they are working what's best for the veterans, as well as making sure that they are being treated well as workers. If you're trying to get rid of them, that means that you don't give a damn about the veterans. You don't give a damn about the workers or the veterans. Says to say today's decision frees VA managers to act in the best interest of veterans rather than union bosses. The managers work for the VA. The unions work for the workers. And this is in any business. The management, and by extension, the HR, are for the companies, or in this case, the institution. Union bosses supposedly are supposed to be there for the workers. Now, we can get into how some union bosses, they are in cahoots with the corporations and the institutions that they're with in order to continue to screw over the workers. That's a whole nother conversation. But the problem is that they want to get rid of those union bosses who actually do vouch for their workers so that they can't essentially have power. And then what happens? This is really just a short stop before they end up privatizing the VA, because they don't care about them. If the VA actually cared about veterans, they wouldn't have put them in harm's way in the first place. If the government actually cared about them, they wouldn't have put them in harm's way. They wouldn't have sent you guys to Vietnam. They actually cared. They wouldn't have sent you to, look after oil fields in places like Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. They wouldn't have sent you over there for that if they actually cared. They wouldn't be trying to get y'all to die for Israel. They wouldn't do that. Because honestly, your lives are worth more than these resources that they're trying to obtain and hoard for their shareholders. And is the opinion of the U.S. government that a U.S. soldier that has not been discharged is worth more than the life of a veteran, more worth than the life of a veteran? Because a veteran is basically, to them, used up. Your life is not worth anymore because you can't perform for us. That's basically the opinion. Because even though it is the government who runs the government, it's not you or me, it's corporations. The corporations do not want any more of that money to go to you. They want that money to go to them, to their shareholders, to their dividend checks. That's what it's about. It's never about you. It was always about the people at the top. So this is another way that they're trying to concentrate that money at the top. Says too often unions that represent VA employees fight against the best interests of veterans while protecting and rewarding bad workers. That was from VA Secretary Doug Collins. He says we're making sure VA resources and employees are singularly focused on the job we were sent to do, providing top-notch care with service to those who wore the uniform. But you know what's funny about that statement? I'm going to tell you what's funny about that statement. You want to know what's hilarious? A huge chunk of those people who they consider to be poor performers, those people who are those unionized VA employees that fight the best interests of veterans and rewarding bad workers, they're also veterans. They're also veterans. You know how many veterans work at the VA? So there's veterans taking care of veterans. That's what the Donald Trump regime, that's what the Biden regime, that's what they think about you guys. This is why we talk about both parties are trash. They're refuse. They're garbage. Because they do not give a damn about you. Even if you served your country. They don't care. They never did. They want to send you into harm's way in order to be able to achieve their ends. But once you can't do it no longer, well, they're more content with you just dying off. They view you no differently than somebody views used toilet paper. That's how they view you. They are inhumane in how they see people. So that was really from the Trump administration and how they view people. And I'm telling you right now, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to privatize it so that they can give more money to the corporations, right? Here is somebody, a doctor had put this in the National Institute of Health. I'm going to read this right here. He says the VA cannot be privatized because of the comprehensive care that it provides, the degree of integration, the wealth of resources, and the level of expertise in caring for the complex medical, psychiatric, and psychosocial problems of veterans cannot be replicated. Nor is this just my opinion. A recent RAND Corporation study documents the evidence. There are many medical services in the private sector that may be delivered more efficiently. And Congress has just passed the Mission Act to allocate funds needed to ensure our veterans have wider and easier access to private care resources. Yet someone must coordinate, monitor, and center all these services on the veteran. It's not likely Mr. S's story would have had this kind of ending in the community. The continuity of care, the access of staff with the knowledge of veterans benefits and healthcare needs, and the ability to listen and follow up without time or performance constraints is just not possible outside the VA. So he's basically saying, he's not saying that it's impossible for the VA to be privatized. He's saying, it can't be privatized, meaning it should never be privatized because of the capacity of what it does for veterans. The problem is that corporations are running our government and they want it privatized. And that's what they're going to fight to do. Let me share this as well while we're here. Says the new budget passes to privatize care, risking veterans' health system. Now, this is from Democratic Representative Mike Levin, but he posted this a couple weeks ago. It says while the recent headlines have been dominated by the passage of President Trump's big beautiful bill and its impacts on Medicaid and food assistance, something critical is happening that every veteran and every American who honors their service needs to know. On the surface, the new Department of Veterans Affairs budget proposal from the Trump administration and House Republicans looks generous. It increases total VA healthcare funding. However, nearly 75% of all new medical care funding is not going to the VA system at all. Instead, it is being shifted to outside private providers. That includes $14.4 billion increase for funding for community care, a 67% jump from last year, and there's been no clear explanation for why this massive increase is necessary. So it talks about how the community care was created under the Obama administration. It says if a veteran lives in a rural area and faces long wait times or needs care the VA cannot provide, they should be able to get help from a provider in the community. That is something I have long supported. But what is happening now is something very different. We are watching the slow dismantling of the VA from the inside out, buried in a budget document. If left unchecked, this will fundamentally weaken the VA system and millions of veterans rely on. But here's the thing that Representative Congressman Levin is not telling you, is that a lot of this actually started with also the Democrats too. Because the problem is that the VA was under a hiring freeze. Why was the VA under a hiring freeze when we're giving over $3 billion a year to Israel? Why is the VA under a hiring freeze when we're giving billions of dollars to Ukraine? Why is the VA under a hiring freeze if we're giving subsidies to the fossil fuel companies, if we're giving subsidies to Big Pharma, if we're giving subsidies to these billionaires? Why is the VA under a hiring freeze if we're giving out all this money to Raytheon, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, all these corporations that thrive on killing machines? Why in the hell are we giving them money, but the people who actually serve the country as veterans who have been broken by the policies of both Democrat and Republican regimes? Why in the world are we giving money to these yahoos instead of actually giving it to the veterans who actually need it the most? Why are we doing that? Because both parties in this government that are run by the corporations don't give a damn about you. You're a means to an end. That is all. This is why the system needs to change. Because if they really cared about you, they wouldn't have put you in harm's way on behalf of the corporations. And that's what they did. a lot of you Iraq war veterans, a lot of you Afghanistan war veterans, a lot of you that have fought in Desert Storm, a lot of you have fought in Vietnam and in other conflicts around the world on behalf of the United States. It wasn't on behalf of the United States, and I'm sorry to say, it wasn't on behalf of our freedoms. It was on behalf of the profits for the corporations. That's why you fought. You had a different reason for fighting. Maybe, just maybe, your reason for fighting was to actually protect your family and your community. Maybe, just maybe, you thought that it was in service to your country. It wasn't in service to your country. It was in service to the corporations. And a lot of y'all were lied to. And many veterans recognize it. I've heard stories from people who work at the VA who have told me that some veterans will retort angrily if you say thank you for your service. They will get pissed off and they will tell you the real deal why they were actually over there. And yet, despite them being used and thrown away, they don't want to take care of them once they break them. The US government doesn't want to take care of them. So this is why when we talk about stories like this, what is happening with the VA, this needs to be something that's talked about across this nation. Because ultimately, as long as this capitalist system continues, the exploitation will continue. Capitalists right now own our government. It is time for us to take it. Not take it back because it was never in our hands, but you take it and make it a government of workers, by the workers, for the workers. Because why? Fuck the corporations. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you guys very much. We're going to get into the chat really quick. I'm going to check on the Rockfin and Rumble to see if we have any Rumble rants and any Rockfin tips. But first, we are going to do this. I just want to give a shout out to the patrons on Patreon. But without you guys, RBN would not exist. And so one of the things I wanted to do is we always try to do what we can on the ground for our neighbors, for our community, because ultimately this system does not serve us, and it won't serve us at all until we actually create a new system that does serve us. And so we do this through giving you the information of why this government is the way it is. But at the same time, we also try to show you how to be able to build dual power, the education that's necessary in order to combat this system and to have something that's brand new. And so we thank you guys for, allowing us to be able to come into your homes and on your devices to be able to communicate this with you. And thank you so very much for subbing, subscribing, sharing, or even getting our merch, whatever have you, to support the channel. We do be appreciated. But we also try to do what we can on the ground ourselves because we are part of the community too. So let me check on I'm going to check to see if we have any Rockfin tips and then if we have any Rumble chats. Okay. Let me go into the Rockfin first, and then I'll go into the Rumble side to see if we have any Rumble rants as well. So, let's go here. All right. So thank you very much for this, Roger. He says, wow, what a coincidence. I saw this, and it's a tweet. Yeah. So I already have that. I was going to talk about that on Tuesday, but because it's relevant, I'll show it. Let me stop sharing really quick because this is also very relevant to the conversation. Thank you for this from 50 Shades of Way. Says a cardiothoracic surgeon who is worried about the shortage of doctors in the U.S.
So why are we turning away 55 to 60% of highly qualified applicants to medical school? Why? The Association of the American Medical College basically explains that 55 to 60% of highly qualified medical school applicants are rejected. The reason? Bottlenecking in the residency position. So follow me on this. If we increase the number of medical school seats and increase the number of trained doctors coming out of medical school, you still cannot practice medicine until you complete a residency. We do not have enough residency positions. Why don't we have enough of these medical residencies? Let's dive into this. Even though you've graduated medical school and you're a medical doctor, you cannot practice medicine until you complete a residency. The number of residencies are capped by Medicare. Medicare is the largest funder for GME, graduate medical education, or residency positions. We spend about $10 billion annually on these residency positions, and this has not been expanded since 1997, despite the desperate need for more doctors in the United States. So the Balanced Budget Act from 1997, which caps the number of residents we can have in the United States, has not been altered since 1997, and they were basically looking at 1996 needs. Since then, our population has aged, healthcare needs have skyrocketed. We simply need more doctors, and the government has not allocated funding for this. Now that we have this big, beautiful bill passed, we know that Medicare is going to be further cut. So all of us who are in teaching positions as surgeons who teach residents, we are 100% positive that we're going to see cuts to GME, to graduate medical education. So what does that mean for you? The Association of the American Medical College anticipates that we're going to be short 130,000 plus physicians. That's 55,000 primary care physicians and 77,000 plus non-primary care physicians, or us specialty physicians like me, a surgeon, by 2036. So we have a problem here in America. And not many people are talking about it or realizing it, but you will once you need someone like me, a doctor. So we really need to look at legislation so that we can increase the number of residency positions. We need money allocated to this. And quite frankly, we need our politicians to do something right for once.
Sorry, I was muted. So I was looking at the population of the United States in 1997. Population of the United States in 97 was 272 million. We are now at over 330 million people in this country. And so since we're not having more residencies for doctors, then that means that we are essentially making doctors more artificially scarce. This gives more money to the hospitals, the private hospitals, the private insurance companies. This gives more money to them because now doctors are more scarce, right? Even though you have all these people with medical training that could become a resident and become a physician, but they're artificially making it more scarce. And so ultimately, this country has grown in population over 58 million people. And if we're not going to grow more in our medical staffing, as far as doctors and physicians, well, then we're going to have a more scarce amount of doctors. And ultimately, this means that medical care is going to be stifled, and it's only going to be reserved for the people who have privilege. It was back in 1975, I think it was. I think we had over 1.5 million hospital beds. By, I think it was 1995, or was it 2005? I think it was 2005. By 2005, our hospital bed population shrunk to around 950,000, meaning we've actually decreased the amount of hospital beds in this country. How'd that work out for us during the pandemic? So this is one of the things that they're doing. Because remember, health is also wealth. So they honestly want to hold that back from all of us too. Thank you very much for sharing that video, Roger. Let's go back into the Rockfin chat and finish up. He says what they are doing with medical profession regarding doctors is the same thing they're doing with people who work in IT. Don't pay for anyone's training in this country. Instead, bring already trained professionals from other countries. Don't pay so much attention to bringing in migrant labor to get the agricultural and construction jobs, so much that we don't see what they're doing to the white collar jobs. So let's go into, let me check on the Rumble side. Okay, we don't have any Rumble rants right now, but thank you so very much. All right. And sorry for being muted, guys. I don't know why. I'm like, did I mute myself? I can't remember. Anyways, let's go to here. Make sure I get to the super chats and super stickers too. Let's see. Okay. All right. So let me say here. Oh, yes. Let's go here. Lady Alex, she said earlier, says, I'm an RN working at the VA. My union, National Nurses United, is not recognized by the VA, and our master agreement is now null and void. This impacts us nurses and veterans we provide care for. Such BS is being spewed by the VA secretary, saying unions are a detriment to veteran care, and he is a veteran himself. Ooh. She continues, says, my program is short-staffed now. Without union representation, management can abuse us with abandon. Exactly what I was saying. She says, okay. And this, I guess it repeated. Thank you so very much to Wandy, says, for the super sticker. Chima says, ever since the Trump economy took a turn for the worse, there has been an influx of these AI and shadow influencer masterclass scammers on Instagram. Wow. You know what? I'm not surprised. Scammers like that. Yeah. Let me see. Jacqueline asked, was it Reagan who was responsible for destroying unions in the US the same way that Thatcher was mostly responsible for destroying unions in the UK? It's been a systematic effort from multiple presidents over the years, but Reagan definitely had a big impact. Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush again, Obama, they all had, hands in that. Some will say that they are for unions, but one of the things that actually helped destroy union representation was programs like NAFTA. NAFTA was a trade agreement that actually destroyed a lot of unions because it took the jobs away and then shipped them overseas. They shipped them to places where the workers could be more exploited. And so those workers weren't unionized abroad. And so therefore, if there's no company that can employ these workers, well, then the union goes away. And so union membership has dropped precipitously. In this country, the union membership has dropped to about 11%. I think it's 11% in the public sector. And it may be less than that in the private sector. But very little unions versus if you go back about 100 years. Well, no, not 100 years, about 80, around 80 years, especially during, the height of, the Great Depression, union participation was extremely high because workers realized their power. And this is why they wanted to suppress unions, because they don't want workers to have more power. Jacqueline also says, not sure about the US, but junior doctors in the UK don't make much money at all, barely above minimum wage. The problem here in the United States is that what you call junior doctors, what we would call residents, they'll make decent money, but the problem is that a lot of the money that they make also has to go paid back into student loans. And you're talking 6-figure student loans that these doctors have to pay back. And so that takes a huge chunk from them. So a lot of doctors don't start really making decent money until they become, their residency ends and they can become attendings and things like that. That's really where things start to pick up, especially if they go from being especially if they are a specialist. Specialists could be cardiology, urology, nephrology. It could be neurosurgeon, cardiac surgeon, pulmonary. If they're a specialist, then they can command more. If they're just general practitioners, it's more difficult. So yeah, specialists tend to make more. Lady Alex says, I was actually fired when I worked for the state when attempting to form a union. That's crazy, man. Wow. Let me see here. Yeah, there's no job protection without a union. Breakup Google says this is the main reason you tell young people to never join the military. Yeah, if you're somebody young and you're thinking about joining the military, don't do it. Don't do it. Stay out. You want to serve your country? Join a mutual aid organization. That's how you serve your country. You serve your country by doing what you can for the people directly. Do not serve these corporations. That's all they're doing. That's all you're doing. Don't serve the corporations. Don't die for the altar of capitalism. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to sacrifice your life for their bottom dollar, for their dividend checks. Blue Sky says Nazi management is max pressure and mind what pops up from the ones who survive. Yeah. You see. Trying to make sure. See. Sis Trav says without wars, veterans would be unemployed. You can employ them to do something else. What are you talking about? My goodness. All right, let me see. Sean says, good morning, JB. Missed out on Savvy JB. Oh, don't feel bad about that. Also, I think veterans deserve better than what they're having to go through. Yeah. You know, it's very sad. Anna says the VA surprised me with an impromptu heart ultrasound last month. Systems are functioning within normal parameters. That's good. Glad your heart's working well. Chima Madhu says, ever since Trump's economy took a turn for the worse, there has been an influx of, I already read that. Make sure. Just trying to make sure I'm doing my due diligence, you know. And yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry. Let me see. Oh, Breakup Rule says those incentives are only paid out if you complete 2 tours. Yep. All right. So let's go into the next subject. We already handled something heavy. Let's go into something a little bit lighter. Let's woosah. This next segment is not going to be as long. It's going to be shorter, but it's going to be a nice segment. All right, so let's get into it. Let me make sure I have everything. All right, so as we're about to get into the next segment, and go ahead and give a like to the stream. Let's get into it. So we're talking about positive news. We talk about the Orlando Public Library, something I saw. And to some people, this may not be very sexy, but it's a good thing. And I would just like to talk about it because I want to encourage more people to take advantage of the services that they have in their cities. So we're going to get into that right now. Look, when was the last time you went to the library? Yesterday? Last week? Last month? Has it been a year? 2 years? 5 years? Don't tell me it's been a decade. Look, the public library is a public good that has been implemented for years in this country. And basically it is a democratization of learning for people. It is not just a place where books are stored and you can check out a book here and there. If you check it out too long, you have to pay a late fee. Libraries are now reservoirs of knowledge and learning of multiple different ways that you can, access. And so I think it's important that we highlight some good things that come out of our libraries. And there was a story that recently happened that I think is very positive, that I think that would help a lot of young people. But at the same time, I want to highlight the benefits of library. And as socialists, as communists, as leftists, when we talk about workers owning the means of production, when we talk about having social welfare programs, when we talk about workers having the power over our government institutions, one of the things that I like to point to is a library system. A library system is actually great because it actually allows us to be able to have access to knowledge without actually having to have it paywalled, right? As long as you have your library card, you can check it out and then turn it in on time, but turn it in, and then you got to get that knowledge for free. Because knowledge is something that should be shared and it should be universal, right? And so I want to share this story because I want to have something wholesome. I want us to feel good. And I want us to be able to utilize the library and other public goods as much as we can. We already pay taxes. Might as well use the services, right? Let's get into it. So this is cool.
But first, thousands of teenagers are driving themselves to campus this year, many of them for the very first time. However, a recent study found Florida ranks among the top 10 nationally for deadly crashes involving young drivers. Traffic expert Megan Mackey is in the studio showing us resources that help teens get more comfortable behind the wheel on the road. And Megan, one of those is right here in Orlando.
Yeah, that's right. The free driving simulator at the Orange County Public Library in downtown Orlando is teaching people how to drive and arrive alive.
All right, so we got you going. We got some more traffic there.
The Orlando Public Library has a lot more than books as a free resource to anyone with a library card. Inside the Melrose Center, there's a driver's education simulator to learn the do's and don'ts behind the wheel.
First things first, you're going to notice we have two versions of the simulator.
Blake, a soon-to-be sophomore at Lake Nona High School, has his learner's permit, but isn't solo on the roads just yet.
I'm a little nervous, but more excited to drive because I think it's a good skill to have.
Go ahead and pick through country road or city.
Sky Saludis is an instructor for the simulator and walked Blake through how it works.
First of all, it's just a very safe environment because if there is someone who is unsure, someone who is not confident, this can absolutely help out with just getting used to the idea of being behind the driver's seat of a vehicle, being behind the wheel.
The simulator teaches you not only how to drive, but the safety aspects of what goes into it, like putting on your seatbelt, which is one of the first steps you have to do before you can put it in drive. Top of mind heading into this school year is the Lake Nona High School senior, Anthony Sanchez, who was killed in a fiery crash on Narcoossee Road back in February. Witnesses say two cars were racing before they crashed into trees.
I think it just showed when you're driving, you have to be really careful. You have to know the rules. You have to obey the rules and just be careful when you're on the road.
Well,
you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when, and there are still public pools in certain areas. There's a public pool not too far away from me, but the public pools that also teach swim classes. And a lot of people will have their little kids taking swim classes. By the way, I want to say this. If you live in an area where there's not a lot of bodies of water, or if you just don't know how to swim, please, for the love of all that is holy and good, take a swim class. Please. I'm begging you, take a swim class. Learn how to swim. I am begging you. Please, go save lives, especially your little ones. Teach little ones as young as 2 and 3 how to swim. Teach them. You could probably teach them even younger than that, but teach them how to swim. Get them comfortable in water. Okay? Because that is important. Because you may not have a lot of bodies of water near you, but you could be at a vacation. You could be on a boat somewhere. Or they could be never have learned when they were little, and then they could be a teenager out with friends, and then something happens. That actually happened to a teenager a few years back because he didn't know how to swim. Okay? But this reminds me of that. A public good teaching young people, not just young people, you can be any age, but teaching people how to drive in a simulator so that, you know, they're not necessarily comfortable being out in the physical world on the road yet, but this gives them more acclimated to learning. So then when they finally do get on the road, they're more comfortable. And so this is a good thing because it actually helps people to be able to learn something, how to keep themselves safe while on the road. And this is a public good for free. Now, watch somebody come in the comments and go, JB, nothing is free. Right. Of course, nothing is free, but it's paid for through our tax dollars, and we pull our resources together in order to help everybody to be able to have the goods that are needed and the services that are needed in order for us to live a, you know, thriving and functioning life. It's called a society. But, you know, if there's no out-of-pocket expense. And so do you know somebody that maybe 12, 13, 14 years old that you eventually you want them to know how to drive, but you're nervous for them to get behind the wheel and you don't know of any parking lot nearby that you can actually take them to? Well, hey, here you go. Right? Library. Let them learn. And you're not paying any money out of pocket. Isn't that cool? Let's continue on.
Nothing can fully prepare you for the reality of getting behind the wheel. This simulator gives anyone learning how to drive a good idea of what it's like.
This can help to build that confidence with just getting used to, okay, I can see how the car feels. I can kind of judge the distances on these 2D screens, and that can just help translate to real life confidence.
To use the driving simulator at the Orlando Public Library, all you have to have is a library card, and with that, you can make a reservation online to use the machine for free. And you guys, I don't have any kids, but I feel like if I did, this would be one of my biggest fears, especially going back to school. The roads here, as we know, so dangerous. So to have tools like this to teach them, I feel like is really resourceful.
Yeah, I think there are so many families that are just getting into this, teaching their young people to drive. We've got that happening in our household. A little terrifying to be in the ride with a brand new driver, but this is brilliant. Like, I'm going to have to get him there and do this just to get some more hours in. Yeah. You know, especially when the weather's bad. You know, we've had a lot of afternoons where we're like, we can't do driving today because it's so bad. So I love this. I'm signing up. Right away.
It's so important for younger drivers too, to get that confidence when they first go behind the wheel before eventually getting out on the roads, especially here in Central Florida with all those vehicles, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and you can even pick the weather pattern you want. So you pick your vehicle and you can choose rainy, foggy, even snow. Obviously, we don't get that here, but you know,
Might
really,
be fun to practice on.
It gives you like a nice experience. So I highly recommend.
Awesome.
So even, you know, weather patterns, right? Like, one of the things that people have to be careful of, especially here in Central Florida, is that we have those afternoon thunderstorms that show up. And a big danger is what's called hydroplaning. So hydroplaning basically, and thank God I have friends that are, you know, gearheads back in the day. Shout out to you guys. But what hydroplaning basically is that when it first starts to rain, there is the water from the rain that mixes with some of the oil and grease that accumulates on the road, and it becomes very slick. And so that can create a hazardous condition, especially in the beginning parts of a rainstorm. And so you have that. Then on top of that, it can rain so hard you can barely see in front of you. And we do have rain that happens like there multiple times throughout the year here in Central Florida. So, you know, you want your teenager or young person or even older person who's just learning how to drive to be able to know how to do this. And all you need, you don't even need a permit because you're not actually out on the road. You just need a library card. So this puts you ahead of the game already. So this is something that's great. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is because this is a public good that people like me think that we should have. For instance, public goods like, you know, nationalized healthcare system, right? Public goods, like I honestly think that public transportation should be absolutely free at the point of service. You shouldn't have to put in a ticket. You shouldn't have to pay a fare in order to get on public transportation. I think freedom of movement is a right of all people. And if you wanted to do it faster travel by train, bus, tram, trolley, or monorail, go for it. I think we should be able to do that. And so this is some of the things that, are you utilizing what is in front of you within your city? Are you utilizing these things that we literally pay for? We literally pay for it. Are you utilizing it in order to enrich or better your life or make your life a little bit more convenient? Now, I want to go here because I think this is also really important. Because a lot of times people think about the library, they just think, oh, it's just a bunch of books. That's not actually the case. And let me know in the comments what some of the things that are at the library that you guys take advantage of or you guys would like to take advantage of in your respective city, county, state. So this is the Orange County Library. So the Orlando Public Library is part of the Orange County Library System. And here's the classes. So, you know, it's not just books, but it's classes here. I'm going to start here. This is all happening today. Okay. So this already happened about an hour ago. The driving simulation, what we just talked about, right? So it has a driving simulator. General orientation from says orientation from Melrose Center. It says audio studio orientation. It says take the first step towards audio recording, toward the audio studio, and explore training options available. Learn the studio workflow, procedures, and best practices. So if you're interested in doing studio audio work, you can do that. All this stuff is for free. Lego Science Earthquake Simulator. So this is in the category of coding, robotics, science, and math. So explore science and engineering with Legos. Learn about earthquakes and how we can build structures to withstand different magnitudes while building your own earthquake simulator. This is a sewing class. You're making men's swim shorts. I know we live in Florida. We need shorts in order to be able to swim. So it says swim shorts with elastic waistband, drawstring, and pockets at seam side, and mesh lining. These shorts with pockets that will be hit every summer. Students are required to bring fabric. So you can bring your own fabric, whatever pattern you like, and you can make swim shorts out of it. Adobe Bridge. Learn how this file management app can speed up your workflow. Look at that. Look at this. You can learn Microsoft Excel at the library. So if you guys are trying to learn how to do this, and this happened 40 minutes ago, it started. X-Tool laser cutter engraver orientation. They have book clubs, right? You can learn improv at the library. This is just page 1, right? Let's go on to page 2. It says you can meet with a social worker if you need certain services. Speech class. So Speaking Clearly Advanced is a course designed for students who want to improve their speaking and presentation skills. So you learn speech, elocution, sentence state modulation, all these different things, right? You have story times, right? From ages 0 to 5. It says shape, sorting, and early math concepts that inspire STEM learning for your little one. Robot fun with crafts, activities, and stories recommended for ages 3 to 5. They have storybook fun. You can learn Microsoft Word, more of the nuances of Microsoft Word. Yoga, family yoga, right? Open language lab, right? So it's probably, this looks like it's in Spanish, so you can learn English or improve your English. You know, learn knitting. This is all stuff that is for free at the library. Learn internet concepts and terminology. Become familiar with web browsers while surfing the web. Computer basics. You know, somebody that may not be very good with computers, or they may be older and they never really paid attention to technology, and now they're in a world where they don't know much about computers. Here's a computer basics class. Now here is Comrades in Coffee. This is interesting. A chance for our local veterans to meet and connect with each other, share stories and experiences. Family members of military service welcome as well. Coffee and snacks provided. So this is for military veterans, right? So this is just amazing stuff that you can actually learn at the local library. If you have time, then you can do all this stuff, right? They got one for back to homeschool, balloon art. Let me see. Photo lighting. So things involving photography. So the point is with all this is that we literally have at our fingertips a lot of wealth of knowledge that's already paid for, that we could use and utilize in order to be able to know more and do better within our daily lives. And so are we utilizing this? We don't just have to do these things online. We can actually go and have hands-on experience with these things. And some of these things are really just life lessons. Like, you should know how to sew on a button. You should know how to be able to patch up your clothes. You should know, like, honestly, and maybe this is me, but I think a lot of these things should be taught in school, right? And it should be universal. Like, for instance, I think that we should have wood shop, metal shop, home economics again, cooking classes. And honestly, I think these should be actually required courses, because in order for you to be able to survive and live, you need to know how these things, you know, like home ec shouldn't be a class just for girls. Like, what? Men eat too. Come on now. Also auto tech, like simple auto technicians. And it shouldn't be just boys in that class. Ladies, y'all should be in that class too. Right? But the thing is, like, ultimately it should be a class that's universal for everybody. So I think this is an amazing thing. You guys, you know, utilize what we have. Embrace your library. Embrace the public goods that are given to us, that are provided for the people. And do it. All right, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Let's get into the comments, and then we'll be on our way out. All right. Jacqueline says, I love library. Oh yeah, I forget. I think his name's Michael. He is so cool. I would like to meet him. He seems like a really cool guy. Let me see. Let me see. URI says some libraries depend on public levy voted on every 4 years. Let me see. Marla World says in San Francisco, it's one of the high school graduation requirements. Exceptions, of course. Oh, okay, cool. Oh no, you can't drown out fascism. Says my father drowned. I'm sorry, you cannot vote out fascism. Says my father drowned in our swimming pool on Thanksgiving '96. I'm not a strong swimmer and have been afraid of pools and large bodies of water ever since. Start with a small body of water. Start small and work your way up. But it's very important that you learn that. And I'm very, very sorry that happened. Let me see here. Yeah. Free classes? That's cool. Yeah, free classes, man. And if you didn't get it the first time, go the second time. It's not like you have to pay anything. Let me see. Yeah, you cannot vote out fascism. My daddy taught me about cars, and my mom taught me sewing. YouTube taught me how to cook. Yeah. Fortunately, I was able to go to culinary school, but not everybody has that. Well, I did it for free too, but not everybody has that that privilege, right? It's not given to everybody. All right, so that is it. I gotta get going, but thank you guys so very much for tuning in, and of course, I will see you guys if I am live on Tuesday. It'll be news stories, but tune in tomorrow evening for Nick at Night. I can't wait for you guys to tune in to that. It's going to be a good one. I think Jason Smith from China, he's going to be joining in. So that's going to be a great conversation. Jason Smith is always a great time. So him and Nick, they're going to hit it off really well. It's going to be good. So guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. Like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And forehead kisses. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.